So I will need to tell the story as well. So it goes like this. One early damp morning, I'm walking to the hospital where I've been working the last couple of weeks. If you were close to me, you could see that I have a firm face and I'm walking with a fast pace because we have some serious problems. First of all, we are not making any money. No patients come to our hospital and we are running really low on cash. The second big problem is that we are not paying our staff correctly. We're paying them below the minimum standard in the city, which is an offense. And the third thing is that we just discovered that the operational permit to even run a hospital has not been renewed in 1.5 years. So we're running on some kind of probation right now. But that's not why I'm walking so fast, because I'm really interested in seeing how the renovation project has been going. So I walk into the hospital lobby and I'm greeted by this. There's buckets collecting water dripping down from the ceiling, and when I look up to the ceiling, the floor, the second floor, I see big black stains like that. That blue thing on the left there, that's our X-ray machine, and a bucket collecting water dripping down. But wait a minute, how can that be? There's a whole floor on top of this. I rush out again, and I'm greeted by this side. What's missing from this picture? There's no roof, but it's been raining every day for 2 weeks. How can this be? I go back in again and I see more and more disturbing signs of something being really off. This is our pharmacy. I'm no electrician, but water dripping into the fuse box is probably not good. And even Jesus has mold on it. So now I rush back up on the second floor because I need to see this. And this is what I see. The roof has practically been thrown down on the second floor and then it's been lying there collecting water that's been rained onto it. And as I walk here, I realize also that I'm the first one up here from the hospital. They have not seen this yet. So I continue around this disaster area and I'm seeing that about 60% of all the beds, all the places we have in the hospital is actually destroyed. It's almost like a tsunami has come through the hospital. And this side is just too much for me. So I just fall down to my knees all of a sudden and I feel tears running down my face because this is horrible. The only thing we could do really was to start digging. I was in these exact clothes. This is the Salvation Army uniform in Indonesia. And we started to dig from the start with our bare hands because we didn't have shovels in the hospital, just to try to save it, to get stuff out. But in the back of my head, all the time, I had one thought: this hospital is dead. There's no recovery from this. Hello, and welcome to this talk. And that is announced like this, but after this morning, I could equally well have called it this, actually. Because I realized as we went through Jenny's talk this morning that many of the things that she mentioned you will soon see in practice here. But I kind of think about it a little bit more on these terms maybe. Because these soft terms was actually the thing that turned this hospital around, that made a big difference. And you will soon see that in practice. But first let me introduce myself. My name is Marcus Hammarberg. I work as a programmer, a consultant, and an agile coach for a very, very long time, and mostly around things in agile and lean. When I'm not working, I care about my family, my instrument that Robert introduced so well, the euphonium, and my church, the Salvation Army. And at this point, I usually do a commercial for my book here, but I will not do that after that amazing introduction. Thank you so much. So if I'm an IT consultant, why was I in Indonesia? Well, me and my wife, we decided to take a couple of sabbatical years and move there with our family to work for our church, the Salvation Army. And in Indonesia, the Salvation Army is running 6 hospitals and 17 clinics throughout this enormous country. And we were there to help the mother organizations of these hospitals with quality and strategic plans. The story takes place in the city where we live, called Bandung, Who's heard about Bandung? Me neither. It's about 10 million people living there. So that's the size of Sweden. But it's not a very nice city, but it's a... So all of the story takes place here in the hospital at the Salvation Army surrounding there. So today I want to tell this story from the view of 4 amazing women at this hospital. So you will hear their story as I go through this. And the first one I want you to meet is this bundle of joy, Igor Butet. But before we can tell her story, I need to set you up for where we were at the time. So, even though we had many problems, we decided early on that the number one problem was to get some money in here. We were about to die. Actually, someone counted afterwards, and we were about 6 weeks out of bankruptcy when we started. Luckily, I didn't know that, because then I would have dared to move. And at the same time as we were helping the hospital, the Salvation Army, the mother organization, was looking into selling the land because they didn't believe that this could ever recover. So we needed some ways to get more money into the hospital if this is going to survive. And the strange thing was that just about everyone understood this, but they didn't really care. It was like, yeah, it's a management problem, they'll fix it. So I needed a way to make them feel that this is actually important, and make them understand. And to be honest, I didn't understand it either, because when I asked how much money do we need in order to make profit, they said, well, it's just something like this in Indonesian rupiahs, and I can't even pronounce that, I don't know what that is. So that was way too complicated. So we broke it down into how much we need per day. But even that was very hard for some of the people to understand, because that was about 10 times what they were making in a month. So they could not relate. So what we did instead was that we started to count how many services do we need to sell, how many patients we need to serve every day. And we came up with that we need to serve 134 patients every day. And we created a huge diagram, much too big. I'm about 30 centimeters taller than the average Indonesian person. So they could never reach the top. But that was not the problem as we started, because our result was devastating. Here's the goal. And we were averaging here on about 68 or something like that. What do you think the reaction was when I showed people this? Yes, something like that. They were very quiet. I saw someone doing Facebook in the end. And I saw 2 nurses were like giggling to each other. So I was really angry. Why are you not called? This hospital is about to die and you don't care. So I asked the person next to me, what's the break-even point? And he says, that's 120 people. So I added a new line here, and in my anger I misspelled it. And I told the staff that every day you were below this line, we lost that money by having the hospital open. And this everyone understood. If we're below this line, we lost money. So we made many different types of visualizations during the time I was there, and we gathered them actually up in a little bit of some kind of rules, or they were more like guidelines actually than rules. So, and here we are. Here's the Rumah Sakit, which means hospital, Rumah Sakit Bungsu visualization pirate code. So the first one is that it needs to be big, meaning that everyone can see this. We actually have this diagram in front of the entire staff every morning. So, and it was so big that everyone actually could see what we wrote. The second is that it needs to be easy to understand. We could easily have shown them budget numbers, but they would not have cared about that. Number of patients through our door, that's something that everyone in the hospital, even the laundry ladies, could care about. We focus on trends and their development or deviations from trends rather than individual numbers. I don't care if it's 82 or 78. I care if it's going up when it's supposed to go up or down when it's supposed to go down. Or if it deviates. We tried a couple of times to measure stuff without the target, but that grows very irrelevant very fast, so we stopped doing that. So we had a rule that everything needs a target. And then, one important thing, we wanted updates frequently. Again, we could have shown monthly budgets, but then we had a new data point every month. Now we have a new data point every day. So what difference does this make then? Because you are all agile people, you've heard about this, the Kanban principle of visualization. Well, let me tell you again about Eva Butet. You should know that she's a physiotherapist / receptionist. That's her job. And one morning after management stand-up, when we had plotted in the numbers here and showed that to the staff, she came up to us and she said, I have an idea for how to bring more patients to the hospital. At this time, the Indonesian government was launching something called BPJS, which is a public health insurance for all Indonesian people. So that's the first time in history, actually, where 250 Indonesian people could afford to go to the doctor. Needless to say, the hospitals in the country was not ready for that invasion of people, and it caused a lot of problems, especially around registration. She was sitting in the reception, so she knew about this. And she said, I think we can make that process easier. I have a few ideas. And we said, perfect, go ahead. But then she responded, not so fast. If we do this, I want a big banner outside the hospital that says, this is the place where BPJS works fast, easy, and comfortable. So we said, well, okay, we'll do that then. So because she wanted to show this off, she was proud already before we started. We put that out. And you know what happened? It was amazing. Just a couple of days after we started to measure, people started to come to our hospital. And a few months later, we actually broke this target that we set up for the first time in our lives. 6 months later, this big exit, you see this number? We had to pull up the share to reach that. And that number here, that's actually when we on average was above the break-even point. So on average, we were not losing money. A big celebration in the hospital. So I'm not saying that this change was the only reason, but it's some other things as well, but it was instrumental. But that's not all. About 4 months after Eva suggested that we're going to change the process, BPJS, the governmental branch of running this public health insurance, they called us up. And they said, we hear that you've done amazing things about the registration process. Can you please host a workshop to share your findings with all other hospitals in the city? Imagine the private, this is the director of the hospital, Dr. Lee, and all of these are management staff in all other hospitals in the city. Imagine the pride of her. 4 months ago, her hospital was a piece of property. Now we were fixing the roof, and it was better. It was not good by any standards, but it was better. And now people want to come to hear how good they were doing. So that's pretty cool, and I can almost see the pride in her eyes that she's trying to contain that. And then I looked at the back of the book, and I found this Eva Butet. She was not actually supposed to be there. We invited her extra because she was the one that sparked this. So what happened here really? Well, it was some very simple things we did. First of all, we started where we are. Start where we were. So we showed everyone exactly how we were doing right now. Not where we want to be, but where we were. And we did that in an understandable, visualized metric that mattered. So everyone could actually care. Even the receptionist could care about this metric. Oh, we need more people to go through the door. I get it. And then we had our leaders close to the ground. We supported the initiatives that came from even lowest level of the organization. So everyone was involved, and we helped out supporting. So that was Eva Butet. The next lady I want you to meet is Ivo Elli, here in black. She's the director secretary, and as such, she was involved in many of our discussions and improvement work with the hospital. But the thing with her was that she is a cultural bearer of brand. So she brought happiness and joy to every place she was in. I still remember standing next to her thinking when I was basically crying all day long because the hospital had died. And and she struck out a song. And they took selfies and they were laughing. And I said, how can you do that now? And she said, that's all we have left. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to be like people. Okay, for this particular thing that we did, she was also in charge of summarizing the numbers that we plotted in here. So every morning, all departments would report to EYD, and they would say, okay, so this is the number, and we would plot that out. And pretty soon, we started a new, you can see over here with the back against the wall, plotting the number out. Pretty soon, we started to ask Kenapa, meaning why. You can see it very scribbled here, Kenapa. Why was this number like it was? Because we wanted to know the reason behind it, just not the number. And by asking why, we could start to learn from the graphs and the trends rather than just ask people how many patients came. So, for example here, see the regularities here? Why? Kenapa? Anyone has an idea?
Weekends?
Yeah, exactly, those were Sundays. No one goes to the hospital on Sundays, apparently. Oh, Kenapa, good, we now know that we have a dip in the graphic. Could we be the hospital that has open on Sundays? Is that even allowed? Can you do that when you're a church? We actually tried, but it turned out to be a little bit more expensive than we could, and we had to change the mindset of an entire population. Which we But we started to question, why did that happen? Then, one day, something interesting happened, because we had a great result. It was not this day, because this was just a couple of days after we started, but we had a great result. And without thinking, I just blurted out, Kenapa, why? And she said, she looked really puzzled, and she looked at her friends, and they looked back at me and said, like, he's stupid. So she said, well, it was 133. Yeah, I know, I said, but Kenapa, why? So she was now very uncomfortable and pulled out her little notebook and was starting to defend herself. And showing me the numbers, she said, well, we had 25 people in ER, 18 in the pharmacy, 7, thank you, I understand it well. Now showing me the math, but I want to know why. And she was so confused about that question that she just started to giggle and went away and said, I don't know. But I wouldn't want them off the hook so easy. Why did that happen? Why did we have a good result? After a while, it turned out that a few doctors actually took extra shifts that day for some reason. Why? Why did the number of patients go up? Turns out the doctors bring their patients. See me at the hospital on this day. So more doctors, more patients. Maybe we should try that out. So, the first thing that happened here was that we measured to learn. This was the thing that made EYL very confused, because she was used to being yelled at for bad numbers. Or EYL, she can't be in charge of that. It's a system that creates the numbers. I wrote down a quote here. Don't change people, fix the environment. Remember that from this morning? So we also started to look for, why did this happen? We saw, it was looking for knowledge to try to improve. So the number was not important by itself, we focused on the trends. 78, 90, 92, I don't care. I want to see the trend over time. And as I said, we started to think about improving the system rather than blaming people. Blame the processes and lean term. And as I said, don't change people, change the process. Fix the environment. The good news here is that we probably are in charge of the process. We can do something about it. We can do something about the environment that caused these numbers. And we also acted on the feedback that we got. Who's been on a boring retrospective? I've been on many retrospectives that don't generate any actions. That's not a retrospective, that's a whining fest. So, we act on the feedback. The retrospective itself will not improve your process, it's the acting on what you found out. So here we were very realistic listened very carefully and actually acted on the feedback. Okay, this photo is actually taken this summer. We went back to Indonesia to meet one of my favorite people at Ivo Gallery. If you look really closely, you can see that I have some red stain here because she was hugging me and her lipstick and stuff. Ivo, she's the general manager of the hospital, which means that she's in charge of basically anything that is not healthcare or finance. And that's a lot of things, because you would have ambulance drivers, you would have the security, they prepare all the food in there, they are stitching stuff together in the sewing workshop, they are doing laundry, and they are doing maintenance work. The hospital was in dire need of maintenance work all over. So she was basically in charge of everything. And she asked our help because she had really stressful days, and I'm sad to say that I probably caused some of that. Because now we had daily stand-up with the management team, and her orders were changing all the time. And obviously that led to it taking longer and longer, so people bypassed Ivoeli and went directly to the maintenance staff. So now she spent her whole day running around the hospital trying to understand what's going on. And she told me, I don't want to do that anymore, because the moment I get into the room, I get more work to do. I'm super busy, but I get nothing done. You experienced that? She was so stressed. I never met a more stressed person. Actually, I had to physically hold her down on the chair in order for us to just have her calm and talk to her and try to improve the situation. So we decided that we were going to do something about that. And that was really good, actually, because at this point in time, our morning meeting with the management team, they have degenerated to us talking about very simple things like the best order of the names of the doctors outside the hospitals, or the best kind of net to hold rats out of the sewer. I kid you not, we talked for 30 minutes about which flowers will be best inside the hospital. That's not management stuff. It's easy to talk about, but it's not management stuff. So, as a coach, I had no form of power in a hospital. They had no reason listening to me at all, but sometimes I used my voice and I made some clear decisions. And here, at this point, I took one clear decision. And I said, from now on, we will not talk about maintenance in this meeting. I pointed to Iverchi and said, Iverchi, you're in charge of that. We will not talk about it. If you have any problems, come to us, we'll help you, and then report back to us on Fridays what you've done. This was really a blessing for the management team. Now we could talk about proper stuff in there as well. Then we looked at Iverchi's days and we started to structure them a little bit more. We said, here's where you have a meeting with the entire staff, you had to stand up for them. Here's where you go around the hospital for 1 hour. When that hour is done, you're done. So we time box that. The rest you do tomorrow. Here's where you have, I was about to say a fika break, and that's the Swedish for having a coffee. Here's where you do all the other things, and then we did something brilliant. In the afternoon, we allocated 1 hour of slack time. Not idle, but slack. So here's where you do the stuff that you didn't have time to do for the rest of the day. 1 hour every day. Then I suggested to them that they were going to do fewer things at the same time from the Kanban principle, the unit working process. So I told the maintenance staff, do 3 things at the same time. You actually do 2 things at the same time, and then when you're done with something, you take something new. And when I said this to her, she looked up to me with tear-filled eyes, and she just said, can I do that? And it was so strange to realize that, but you can. I'm here to tell you, each and every one of you, you can limit the number of things you're working on at the same time. That's called being a professional. Say no. I'm not going to do that right now. I can stop doing that and do this thing instead. I can do both at the same time. I only have to do that. And the final little trick that we did was to make the policies around this work very explicit. That sounds really hard, but it was not. We said to the maintenance staff, you do nothing that you don't have written on this yellow slip, and that slip is in the pocket of the wedge. So, if you need something done, you go to her and she will write it on the slip and she will hand that up. So that's very easy to do in Indonesia. They love following orders. You just get the manager to tell everyone that it is like that, and then it is like that. It's amazing. So what happened then? Well, 3 days after we made these changes, that was easy to do. We did them in half an hour. We just decided this. 3 days after, I got really worried because she came up to me and said, "My days are so calm, I have nothing to do." So I went, okay, something has gone very wrong here. Nothing gets done. But okay, she was so stressed out. Let her rest and talk on Friday. So the first Friday, she was about to give her report. But in Indonesia, there's 35 public holidays per year. It's a good place to work. So we had to wait for another week. And just before she came up to do her report, I just realized that I didn't have a baseline. How many things do they normally do in maintenance? So I asked someone next to me, what's normal? He said, yeah, 2 to 3 things gets done per week. Okay, 2 weeks, 6, I'm hoping for 8, maybe 10. She reported 46 items complete in 2 weeks. And remember that she says, my days are so much calmer now, I have nothing to do. It was the best morning meeting I've been in my entire life. It took forever, though, but because she was like reporting all this stuff. You remember that lamp in the kitchen? Fixed. You remember that sink? We fixed that as well. So after a while, I actually took a little video. I'm going to see it here. But I want you to notice something, and that's the people around her. Because 2 weeks ago, they were hating her guts because they were nothing got done. She was the talk of the hospital, nothing gets done. Take a look at her now. I hope that this is not too loud or that you can hear. You can hear it at all. Okay, we're going to try one more time. I'm going to do this. You're so quiet, maybe this will. Suda, that means fixed. Sampurna means with excellence. So she was reporting with pride the progress there. So what happened there? Well, first of all, this was not hard by any means. The only thing we did was actually unlock the potential of UH. And we did that by moving the authority to the information. You take care of this, you're closer to the work. And we did, by doing that, we showed her trust. Got some transparency back in the reporting. But we showed her trust. And she was also accountable. This is important. This needs to get done. We made the policies really explicit about how to work with this so that everyone understood and could follow it easily. And we limited working process. Even she had this job for a very long time. But she was always the same. We just let the system allow her to be the amazing woman that she was. Because the system was holding her back. The man to the left of Iwachi, to the right of Iwachi, is called Meiko Turista. I don't know this man, but all of a sudden he tagged me one day on LinkedIn with this photo. It turns out that he's a thought leader within business agility in Indonesia. He read my book about this story, and he said, I had to go up to the hospital to take a selfie with Iwachi. So if you look really close in her eyes, you can see that she's pretty confused. Why is this man coming here? But she's now a celebrity in the Agile community. About 3 weeks later, after a morning meeting, Iwachi came up to me and she said, Marcus, your sleeve has come undone. It was hanging down, this shirt was hanging down like that. And I said, being a Swedish man, I said, yes, I can fix that when I get back home. Thank you for telling me. And she said, no, I can do that for you. And I said, you can't do that because you're the general manager of the hospital. I know how busy you are. I'm not busy. So she took me to her very tiny office where I barely fit. And I took off this shirt And she wrapped me in a blanket. It was 28 degrees warm, and she still I would be really uncomfortable sitting next to her without my shirt. And the thing that you don't know about Ingrid is that her English is not really good, and my Indonesian is horrible. So after a while, it just got silent as she was fishing this sleeve out for me. And we had this magical moment where she was, in a way she was saying thank you, and in a way I got just to feel how her days has now become by these very, very simple changes that we could make for her. Okay, last person I want you to meet is the director of the hospital, Dr. Lillian. She's very young, I think she was about 34 when I met her. And as a director of any organization in Indonesia, you're the top of a very hierarchical organization. You're never wrong, you're never questioned, and even if you're wrong, you need to make it so that you're right somehow. Like some other old school leaders. Okay, let's talk about Dr. Lillian. So the problem for Dr. Lillian now was that she was facing a situation that she has never been in before, where the hospital was in dire need. And to be quite honest, no one has ever faced this situation before. And the help that she got was from some white, confused IT consultant. I told her many times, Dr. Lillian, I don't know how to run a hospital. I have no idea how to do that. And she looked back at me and she said, I don't know what to do. So what could we do? Well, we could experiment, which was a good time because now we, as I said, we were starting to make some money, but we had new problems because if you remember, we started to support BPG as the health insurance, and they had a set prices which was lower than ours. So we needed to lower our income. And that minimum salary that we pay now, it's adjusted every year, so we need to bring the costs up so our profit went away. And this was horrible because we have now done all the simple things. All the low-hanging fruit has already been picked. So we were now in a situation where no one really knew what was going ahead, which was the complex domain of the Canadian framework, if you've ever seen that. The solution is not knowable in advance. You need to try something. So what we started to do was to talk about our work in terms of experiments. So we changed our board a little bit. There will be a short lecture on Indonesian here. The first column here is called apa, meaning what. For example, we need more patients to come to the hospital. We still need that. Kenapa? Why? Because we need to evolve and sustain the hospital. And then we did a new column here that we call hypothesis, meaning what do we think will happen? Do you have an idea for something that can express like that? So we would say something like, we think that doing more operations in the hospital will increase the number of patients. And if you have a hypothesis, then it's really easy to devise, to do the next column, because now you can devise experiments to see if that hypothesis holds up. So what's the small little thing that we can try to see if that's true? We could, for example, ask our doctors to do all their operations in our hospital the coming 2 weeks. And we could go to the clinic next door and ask them to send all their operations patients to us. Cool, we'll do that. And for each experiment, we created a new graph. Number of operations, number of referred patients. And this is the old graph with the number of patients. I didn't think I was going to present this when I took the photos. So I had a crappy phone and I was shooting for myself. So let me tell you when Dr. Lillian got it. One day, she walked up to this board and she looked at these graphs and she said, well, from the look of it, it seems like our experiments didn't do what we thought. And she went up to the board and she erased the experiment column, and then she turned to her management team and she said, okay, what do you want to try now? So what happened there was that she went from being a manager giving orders to being a leader, inviting people to to take part. So we didn't do orders anymore, we now did experiments, or intent, as you heard this morning. We went from executing work to learn. We need to learn more about this. Frame the problem as a learning problem, not an execution problem. That's part of modern Agile. And we went from me and them. Dr. Lilian and I talked many times about them. They are not doing their job, they are not doing it. And after a while, they started always to talk about us. But underneath all of that, I think the driver was this word that's really hard to say for non-American speakers, vulnerability. I think that we showed humbleness before the fact that we don't know. She said that to the management team. I don't know what the best action is. And I said that many times, which scared them immensely. I don't know how to run a hospital. Between us, I still don't know how to run a hospital. But I know how to get stuff done. This picture is from the last day I was in the hospital when we were working there. And we had a little get-together where we sang some songs together. Yeah, they actually have a hymn for the hospital where they are singing the vision and mission for the hospital. All workplaces has that, which feels really strange to them. It's so strange. But they do that. So we sang those hymns together. And then, as we were going out, me and my wife, can you see me, by the way? Yeah. So after we were going out there, they all lined up in a long line. And they were all hugging us on the way out. And we felt very strongly for this hospital. I can truly say that I love this people. So that felt correct. And I was kind of expecting it. But I was not expecting that they were all whispering just about the same thing in my ears as we were hugging. And they said this: you were friendly. We were bad, but you didn't yell at us. You wanted to help us. And I realized at that point that they were not expecting that. They were expecting someone to come there and yell at them that they were bad and just tell them to improve or else. Here's the thing though, I couldn't do that because I didn't know what to do. So the only thing I could offer was, I don't know, let me try to help. And that made the whole difference. Because in this, both of us were in our weakest point. I don't know this. And they said, we don't know what to do. And that made us strong together. These are the heroes. I was merely a guy. I worked for about 2 hours a day at the hospital, and besides digging, I did nothing. These people did it. Eve, she showed me how transparency can make everyone in an organization be involved and engaged in changing. Ivo Elli showed me that focusing on systems and focusing on learning can actually make a huge difference in how we perceive metrics. Ivo Elli showed me that trust and empowerment can not only change the life of a single person, but also make her more productive in the process. And Dr. Lilian showed me how vulnerability and humbleness actually can turn managers into leaders and engage an entire workforce in a common goal. There is a book about this called The Moon's Story. I'm super proud that Dr. David Marquis has written forward, so you can read that in the book way. So please get that, look at all the details that I didn't have time to tell you now. And other than that, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. God bless you. To my members.